The desert wind howled like a wounded animal, whipping sand across the cracked asphalt of Route 17, where the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in blood-red streaks. In the shadow of a derelict gas station, little Ava Ramirez huddled against the rusted pump, her small frame shaking not just from the chill, but from the terror etched into her wide eyes. She was 8 years old, her pigtails matted with dust, clutching a faded, stuffed bear as if it were her last lifeline. Hours earlier, she'd wandered too far from her family's rundown trailer park, chasing a stray dog into the dunes, only to realize the fading light had swallowed her world. Now, as dusk clawed at the sky, distant shouts echoed, rough voices, not kind ones, closing in from the scrubland. They weren't rescuers, they were opportunists, shadows drawn by her cries, their intentions twisting the air with unspoken menace. Ava's heart pounded like a trapped bird, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. The first silhouette emerged from the twilight, a hulking figure in worn jeans and a leather vest, his face obscured by the brim of a cowboy hat. He wasn't alone. 2 more flanked him, their laughter low and predatory, like coyotes scenting weakness. "Lost your way, kid?" the leader drawled, stepping closer, his boots crunching gravel. Ava scrambled back, pressing against the pump, her bear tumbling into the dirt. The men circled, their presence a suffocating fog, blocking any escape. One reached out, his hand rough and calloused, aiming to grab her arm, not to help, but to claim. Panic surged through her. She screamed, a piercing wail that sliced the evening quiet, but the wind swallowed it whole. That's when the rumble started, a deep, throaty growl that vibrated through the ground like thunder rolling in from the mountains. Headlights pierced the gloom, twin beams cutting through the dust like searchlights. It wasn't a car, it was a beast on 2 wheels, a midnight black Harley-Davidson roaring to life from the highway's edge. The bike surged forward, engine snarling, its chrome accents flashing under the dying sun. At the helm was Ethan Hale, a man forged in the fires of forgotten wars, his face weathered by scars that told stories he never shared. Broad-shouldered, with a salt and pepper beard, framing jaw set like iron, Ethan had been riding solo for years, chasing ghosts across endless miles. His leather jacket, patched with faded insignias from his Marine days, creaked as he gunned the throttle, pulling up mere feet from the scene. The men froze, their bravado crumbling under the biker's glare. Ethan killed the engine with a flick of his wrist, the sudden silence amplifying the tension. He swung off the saddle, boots hitting the ground with deliberate weight, his presence alone shifting the air. 6 feet of quiet authority. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. "Step away from the girl," he said, voice low and gravelly, carrying the weight of commands issued in battlefields far from here. The leader sneered, puffing his chest, but Ethan's eyes, steel-grey and unyielding, locked on him, promising consequences without a word. One of the others muttered something about minding his own business, but Ethan took a single step forward, his hand resting casually on the handle of a tire iron clipped to his belt. It wasn't a threat, it was a fact. The standoff hung thick, the wind whispering secrets through the Joshua trees. Ava peeked from behind the pump, her sobs quieting as hope flickered in her chest. The leader hesitated, glancing at his companions, then spat into the dirt. "Ain't worth the trouble," he grumbled, backing off with a jerk of his head. They slunk into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving only the echo of their retreat. Ethan didn't watch them go. His focus was on Ava. He knelt slowly, not crowding her space, and extended a gloved hand. "Hey, kiddo, name's Ethan. You safe now? What's yours?" Ava," she whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf in the breeze. She hesitated, then placed her tiny hand in his, the warmth of his grip chasing away the chill, as he helped her to her feet, dusting off her dress with gentle swipes. The gas station's neon sign buzzed to life overhead, casting a flickering blue glow on them both. Ethan scanned the horizon, his mind already mapping the way back to the trailer park he'd passed earlier. But as he turned toward his bike, Ava's gaze caught something. A jagged scratch on the fuel tank, fresh and deliberate, carved deep into the black paint. In the dim light, the words emerged. "Payback comes at midnight. The Iron Vipers don't forget." Her eyes widened, breath catching. Ethan followed her stare, his expression hardening into a mask of stone. The Iron Vipers, outlaw riders from his past, a crew he'd walked away from after a betrayal that cost lives and shattered oaths. That scratch wasn't random, it was a mark, a warning aimed at him, left by ghosts he'd buried deep. Ava tugged at his sleeve, her voice a urgent whisper. "Mr. That means you? They're gonna hurt you?" Ethan's jaw tightened, the weight of old promises pressing down like the desert night. He'd sworn off that life, the cycle of vengeance that had claimed too much already. But here, in this child's trusting eyes, something stirred, a forgotten vow to protect the innocent, no matter the cost. He scooped up her bear, handing it back with a nod. "Not if I can help it, Ava. Let's get you home first." As he lifted her onto the bike's passenger seat, securing her with a spare helmet from his saddlebag, the engine roared back to life. The scent of hot metal and exhaust mingled with the earthy tang of sagebrush, and they peeled away, tires kicking up gravel in a plume that blurred the line between escape and pursuit. Behind them, the scratched tank gleamed under the rising moon, a harbinger of storms to come. Ethan's mind raced. How had they found him? And what revenge brewed in those words? But for now, the girl's safety anchored him, a small light piercing the gathering dark. Little did he know, her simple act of pointing out that message would ignite a chain of loyalty, pulling his old crew from the shadows and forging a path toward redemption neither could have foreseen. The trailer park lights twinkled like distant stars as they approached, families gathering for evening meals, unaware of the drama unfolding at its edge. Ethan eased the bike to a stop, helping Ava down as concerned voices called out. Her mother rushed forward, tears streaming, enveloping her daughter in a fierce hug. "Thank you," the woman gasped, clutching Ethan's arm. "We thought... God, we were so scared." He waved it off, but Ava turned back, pressing a crumpled drawing into his hand, a child's sketch of a motorcycle with a smiling rider. "Come back, okay? Promise," she said, her eyes earnest. Ethan paused, the weight of that word, promise, hanging heavy. In his world of broken oaths, it felt like a lifeline. "I promise, kiddo." As he revved the engine and rode into the night, the desert swallowed him whole. But the seed of something greater had been planted. The Viper's threat loomed, but so did the call of honor, drawing him toward a reckoning that would test every scar, every secret, and every bond he'd thought lost forever. The moon hung low over the endless sprawl of the Mojave, its silver light carving sharp edges into the saguaros that flanked the highway like silent sentinels. Ethan Hale gripped the handlebars tighter, the vibration of the Harley thrumming through his bones as he pushed the bike harder, leaving the trailer park's faint glow in the rearview mirror. The wind tore at his jacket, carrying the faint, acrid scent of creosote bushes and distant rain that would never come. Ava's drawing burned in his pocket, a child's scribble that felt heavier than any medal he'd earned in the sands of foreign wars. But it was the scratch on his tank that clawed at his thoughts. The raw letters, "Payback comes at midnight. The Iron Vipers don't forget." Midnight was hours away, yet the words echoed like a countdown, pulling him back to a life he'd buried under miles of blacktop. He'd ridden solo for 5 years, ever since the night that shattered the Vipers. Back then, Ethan had been their enforcer, a brother forged in the crucible of street justice and unbreakable codes. The crew had started as a band of veterans, patching wounds from battles overseas with the roar of engines and oaths sworn over flickering campfires. But greed had poisoned it, a deal gone sour with a rival gang, lives lost in the crossfire, and a betrayal that traced straight to their own ranks. Ethan had walked away, carrying the guilt of a promise he'd made to his fallen commander. Protect the innocent, no matter the cost. The Vipers branded him a traitor, their marks left on his bike like curses. He'd changed the plates, repainted the frame, but ghosts had a way of resurfacing, especially under a child's watchful eye. The neon haze of a roadside diner flickered ahead, a lone beacon in the void. Ethan pulled off Route 17, the bike's growl fading to a sigh as he parked under the buzzing sign that read, Desert Rose, open all night. The lot was empty, save for a couple of semis idling like sleeping giants, their drivers nursing coffee inside. He killed the engine and swung his leg over, boots crunching on gravel as he approached the tank. In the diner's floodlights, the scratch gleamed accusingly, the letters jagged as if clawed by talons. He traced them with a gloved finger, the metal cool and unyielding. Who had tailed him here? And why now, after all this time? The Vipers weren't known for patience. Their revenge was a slow burn, but midnight suggested urgency, a trap set perhaps to lure him back into the fold or bury him for good. Pushing through the diner's glass door, the bell jingled softly, announcing him to a room thick with the aroma of sizzling bacon and stale cigarette smoke. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag reading Lila glanced up from the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. Behind her, a jukebox hummed a forgotten country tune about lost highways and second chances. Ethan slid onto a stool, the cracked vinyl creaking under his weight, and ordered black coffee, his voice a low rumble that blended with the hum of the fridge. As Lila poured steaming liquid into a chipped mug, he pulled out his phone, a burner, untraceable, the only line to his past. His thumb hovered over a single contact. Jax. Jacob. Jax. Harlan, his old second-in-command, the one Viper who'd understood when Ethan left. They'd shared foxholes and flat tires, bound by a promise whispered over a grave. Loyalty above all, even when the club turned venomous. The call connected on the second ring. Ethan, hell man, it's been ghosts since 20. Jax's voice crackled through, rough as sandpaper, laced with the faint twang of their shared southern roots. Ethan didn't waste words, recounting the rescue, the girl, the message. Silence stretched on the line, broken only by the clink of Lila setting down a plate of untouched pie. Vipers marked you? After all this? Jax finally said, tension coiling in his tone. Rumors been swirling. Their new prez, some hothead named Victor Kane, he's rallying the old guard. Thinks you ratted on the big score that went south. Midnight's no bluff. They're planning a hit at the old rally grounds, luring stragglers with a fake truce. But if they know you're out there, brother, ride clear. Ethan's grip tightened on the mug, the heat seeping through ceramic like the fire of old regrets. Victor Kane, a name that stirred bile. The man who twisted their code into a noose, profiting off the chaos Ethan had tried to stop. Can't run, Jax. That girl saw it, pointed it out like she knew. Made me promise to come back safe. If I bolt, they come for her park next, innocence in the crosshairs. The line hummed with unspoken history, the weight of brotherhood that time couldn't erase. Jax exhaled sharply. Damn, Your Honor. Hale, all right, I'm in. Got a few loyalists left, me, Riley, and Marcus. We'll meet you at the crossroads by dawn. But this ain't just payback, it's redemption. We take 'em down clean, expose Victor's corruption to the whole damn network. No blood if we can help it, just truth. Hanging up, Ethan stared into the coffee's black mirror, seeing fragments of his reflection. The scar snaking from temple to jaw, a souvenir from a Viper ambush he'd barely survived. Redemption. The word tasted like dust, but Ava's drawing in his pocket whispered otherwise. He slid a 20 across the counter to Lila, who eyed him with quiet curiosity. Rough night? She asked, her voice soft, carrying the empathy of someone who'd seen too many drifters chase demons. Ethan nodded, a ghost of a smile cracking his beard. Every night's rough out here, But some promises, they light the way. Outside, the desert had deepened to ink, stars pricking the sky like bullet holes. He straddled the bike, the engine awakening with a throaty bellow that shattered the stillness. As he merged back onto the highway, the wind carried a chill that seeped into his bones, but resolve warmed him from within. The crossroads loomed in his mind, a dusty fork where paths converged, not just roads, but fates. Jax's crew would ride in, engines united like the old days, but this time for justice, not vengeance. Victor's trap at the rally grounds would crumble under the weight of exposed lies, falsified deals, coerced oaths, a web of corruption that had claimed good men. Ethan's scars ached with the promise of confrontation, but the girl's trust anchored him. He wouldn't let revenge claim another soul. Miles blurred into the night, the Harley's headlights slicing darkness like a blade. In the distance, thunder rumbled, not from clouds, but from approaching riders, faint at first, then building to a symphony of loyalty. Ethan glanced at the tank, the scratch now a badge of defiance. Midnight approached, but so did allies, drawn by the unbreakable thread of chosen family. The desert whispered warnings, but Ethan's heart beat steady, fueled by the moral fire that no shadow could extinguish. As the first hints of false dawn tinged the east, he spotted taillights ahead, 3 bikes, silhouettes against the void. Jax waved him in, his face illuminated by a dashboard glow, eyes fierce with the spark of brotherhood reborn. They formed a loose convoy, engines syncing in rhythmic harmony, the air thick with the scent of oil and anticipation. Victor's holed up at the grounds, thinking he's untouchable. Jax shouted over the roar, wind whipping his words. We roll in quiet, record the bastard spilling his guts, and then call in the Federals. Clean hands hail. Ethan nodded, the plan solidifying like steel in the forge. But as they crested a rise, headlights flared in the mirrors, Vipers closing fast, their numbers swelling like a storm. The chase ignited, tires screaming on asphalt, dust clouds billowing in the rear. Bullets? No, not yet. This was a test of wills, a prelude to the moral showdown that would redefine them all. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The desert night unfolded like a black canvas, stretched taut. The highway a ribbon of faded white line that snaked through canyons of shadow and stone. Ethan's Harley led the pack, its engine a steady pulse against the chaos erupting behind them. Jax rode flank left, Riley on the right, a wiry ex-Marine with tattoos snaking up his arms like barbed wire, and Marcus bringing up the rear, his bulk hunched low over the bars, eyes scanning the mirrors for the swarm of headlights that had ignited the pursuit. The Vipers were closing in, a dozen at least, their bikes a thunderous horde kicking up veils of dust that choked the air like smoke from a battlefield. No shots fired yet, but the whine of over-revved motors screamed intent, a pack of wolves testing the herd before the kill. Wind lashed Ethan's face, stinging like salt in old wounds, carrying the metallic tang of exhaust and the dry bite of alkali soil. He glanced back, the glow of Viper taillights blooming like embers in the dark, relentless and growing. "They're pushing hard," Jax bellowed, his voice cutting through the roar as he edged closer, their wheels nearly kissing in the tight formation. Ethan nodded, jaw clenched beneath his beard, the vibration of the road jarring his scars into a dull throb. This wasn't random. Victor Kane had anticipated resistance, his trap extending beyond the rally grounds into this high-speed gauntlet. The crossroads had been a feint, a lure to draw out the loyalists, but Ethan saw it now, the moral chessboard unfolding where every mile tested not just speed, but the steel of their oaths. A sharp curve loomed ahead, the road dipping into a washout scarred by flash floods long past. Ethan signaled with a gloved fist, and the trio braked in unison, tires screeching as they leaned into the turn, gravel spitting like sparks from a grinder. The Vipers faltered, a few bikes fishtailing in the loose sand, but they recovered fast, engines howling in fury. One broke ahead, a sleek chopper with flame decals, licking its tank, pulling parallel to Marcus. The rider, a Viper scout Ethan vaguely recognized from grainy memories, yanked a chain from his belt, swinging it like a lash toward Marcus's rear wheel. The big man swerved, the chain whistling harmlessly into the night, but it was a warning. They meant to cripple, not just chase. "Split the pack!" Ethan shouted, his voice gravel over thunder. He gunned the throttle, veering right onto a service road that paralleled the highway, a rutted path used by ranchers and smugglers alike. Jax and Riley followed, the dust plume masking their move for precious seconds. Marcus held the line on the main drag, drawing half the Vipers after him like a decoy flare. The separation bought time, the roar fading to echoes as Ethan navigated the bumpy track, saguaros blurring into ghostly shapes under the moon's cold gaze. His mind raced faster than the bike. Ava's face flickered in his thoughts, her small hand in his, the promise he'd made under the trailer park lights. This chase wasn't just survival, it was redemption's forge, hammering out the dross of his past to protect the fragile bonds he'd sworn to honor. The service road spat them out near an abandoned mining outpost, rusted silos looming like skeletal fingers against the starry vault. Ethan eased off the gas, scanning for ambush points. The Vipers would circle back, their numbers an advantage in open terrain. Jax pulled alongside, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill, his eyes sharp as flint. Marcus'll shake 'em or signal if he's pinned. Victor's playing dirty, heard whispers he's got insiders in the network, twisting old alliances for his gain. Riley nodded, his voice tight over the idling engines. Yeah, and that score from years back, Victor skimmed it all, left brothers to rot. We exposed that at the grounds. The whole Viper empire crumbles from within. Ethan dismounted, boots sinking into the soft earth as he paced toward a cluster of boulders, the air heavy with the scent of creosote and cooling metal. He pulled the burner from his pocket, thumbing a quick text to Marcus. Hold or evade, no heroes yet. The reply buzzed back almost instantly. Evading. 5 on me. Rally at the old wash. Loyalty holds. Ethan pocketed the phone, staring into the abyss where the highway vanished. The Viper's corruption ran deep, falsified oaths, coerced silence, a web that had ensnared good men like flies in amber. Victor's midnight call wasn't vengeance for betrayal. It was a desperate bid to bury the truth, to erase the ledger of his greed. But Ethan's walkout years ago had planted the seed of doubt, and now, with Jax's crew, it bloomed into a force for justice. Headlights pierced the dark from the east, not Vipers, but a lone pickup rattling along the service road, its high beams sweeping like a searchlight. Ethan tensed, hand drifting to the tire iron at his belt, but Jax waved him down. "That's Lena," he said, a rare softness edging his tone. The truck skidded to a halt. Dust settling around a woman in her 40s, her dark hair tied back under a bandana, face lined with the quiet strength of those who'd mended more than wounds. Lena Torres, a nurse from the veterans clinic in the next town over, had patched up the Vipers in quieter days, her hands steady on stitches and secrets alike. She'd been Jax's anchor after the split, a chosen sister in their fractured family. "Got your message!" she called, hopping out with a medical kit slung over her shoulder and a shotgun racked in the cab. Insurance, not intent. "Heard the rumble from my shift. Marcus radioed ahead. He's got a limp on that wheel, but he's coming." Her eyes met Ethan's, recognition flickering. "You look like the ghost stories, Hale. Victor's men roughed up a kid's family earlier, same trailer park. They're testing lines, seeing who bites." The words hit like a gut punch, linking the threat to Ava's world. Ethan's fists balled, the promise to the girl now a burning vow. No more running shadows. This was the line where honor demanded they stand. They waited in the outpost's lee, engines off. The desert's hush broken only by the distant wail of coyotes. Minutes stretched like taffy, tension coiling in Ethan's chest, until Marcus's bike crested the rise, trailing smoke from a grazed fender but intact. He rolled up, face smeared with grime, grinning through the strain, shook the tails into a ditch, 5 down, cursing the sand. Relief washed over them. A brief tide before the next wave. Jax clapped his shoulder, the gesture speaking volumes of bonds reforged in fire. As they remounted, the first grey smudges of pre-dawn lightened the horizon, painting the mining ruins in muted silver. The rally grounds lay 10 miles west, a vast pitted arena ringed by scrub and forgotten bleachers, where the vipers gathered for their twisted rites. Victor would be there, throne of crates and ego, expecting broken men to kneel. But Ethan led the ride now, 4 engines sinking into a defiant chorus, the wind carrying whispers of unity. The chase had forged them tighter, exposing the rot without a drop of blood spilled. Ava's discovery, the scratched warning that sparked this storm, had prevented blind revenge, turning it instead into a calculated stand for truth. Bullets might fly at the grounds, but Ethan's resolve was the sharper blade. He touched the pocket where her drawing rested, a talisman against the dark. The sun's edge breached the mountains as they accelerated, the desert awakening in hues of gold and rust, illuminating a path not of destruction, but of quiet, unyielding justice. Victor's empire teetered, and with it, the ghosts of old promises began to fade, replaced by the light of loyalty earned anew. The rally grounds sprawled like a forgotten coliseum under the creeping dawn, a vast bowl of cracked earth ringed by weathered corrals and splintered wooden stands that whispered of wilder days. Dust devils swirled lazily in the still air, carrying the faint, bitter scent of sage and sun-baked clay, as the first rays of sunlight clawed over the eastern ridges, gilding the horizon in molten gold. Ethan Hale throttled back his Harley, the engine's growl softening to a murmur as he crested the final rise, his 3 companions fanning out behind him like shadows of resolve. Jax rode close, his face a map of grim determination etched by the low light, while Riley and Marcus flanked the edges, their bikes humming with restrained power. Lena's pickup trailed at a distance, its tires crunching over the gravel approach, a steadfast sentinel in this theatre of reckoning. Ethan's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned the basin below. Tents dotted the perimeter like scattered bones, motorcycles lined up in orderly rows, 24 vipers, their leather cuts gleaming with the serpent emblem that had once been a symbol of brotherhood, now twisted into a badge of betrayal. Smoke curled from a central bonfire, figures moving like ants around crates stacked high with what Ethan knew were not supplies, but ledgers of deceit, falsified manifests from deals that had bled the club dry. Victor Kane held court at the fire's edge, a stocky man with a shaved head and a scar-riddled neck, his laugh booming as he gestured to a cluster of lieutenants. He hadn't spotted them yet. The approach was masked by the undulating terrain, a gift from the desert's unforgiving folds. "Park the bikes in the scrub," Ethan murmured over the comms Jax had rigged from scavenged parts, his voice a low anchor in the rising tension. They dismounted silently, boots sinking into the loamy soil, the air thick with the metallic tang of cooling engines and the earthy promise of confrontation. Lena pulled up last, killing the motor with a final cough, her medical kit at the ready, not for wounds of flesh, but for the healing of fractured oaths. She met Ethan's gaze, her expression steady, a quiet nod passing between them like a shared vow. In her eyes, he saw the faces of countless veterans she'd mended, men like him, carrying invisible shrapnel from wars both abroad and at home. They crept forward on foot, using the natural cover of arroyos and boulders, the sun's warmth beginning to seep through their jackets like a hesitant truce. Ethan's heartbeat with the rhythm of old memories, the crackle of campfires in Viper strongholds, promises sworn under starlit skies to stand as one against the world's cruelties. But Victor had eroded that foundation, siphoning funds meant for fallen brothers into his own pockets, coercing silence with threats that echoed the very corruption they'd fought to escape. The scratched message on Ethan's tank burned in his mind, not as a spark for revenge, but as the catalyst for truth. Ava's innocent discovery had shifted the tide, turning personal vendetta into a moral imperative. Expose the rot, salvage the remnants of honor. Halfway down the slope, Jack signaled a halt behind a cluster of Joshua trees, their twisted limbs casting elongated shadows. Through binoculars, Riley whispered the layout. "Victor's got guards at the east flank, 4 armed light. The ledgers are in that blue tent unlocked. We slip in, grab proof, broadcast it." No guns drawn. This was Ethan's edict, born from scars that taught violence only begat more shadows. Marcus, ever the sentinel, positioned himself to watch their rear, his broad frame blending with the rocks. The air hummed with distant voices, vipers trading stories of glory, oblivious to the ghosts closing in. Ethan led the infiltration, moving like smoke through the underbrush, the dry grass whispering against his jeans. The bonfire's glow intensified as they neared, casting flickering light that danced across faces hardened by the life. One guard turned, a cigarette dangling from his lips, but Jax's thrown pebble diverted him toward a false noise in the scrub. They reached the tent's flap, hearts pounding in unison, the canvas warm from the fire's proximity. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the musty scent of paper and ink. Stacks of documents lay scattered on a makeshift table, receipts doctored to hide Victor's skims, witness statements buried to protect his schemes. Ethan snapped photos with a concealed camera, the clicks muffled like secrets unearthed, each frame a nail in the coffin of lies. But fate twisted in the quiet. A boot scuffed outside, and the flap rustled. Victor's voice boomed through, slurred with whatever fueled his bravado. "Round up the strays. Hale's ghost is out there. Time to end it." Ethan froze, exchanging a glance with Jax, the weight of exposure crashing down. They slipped out the back just as a viper entered, melting into the shadows of an adjacent stall. The close call ignited a spark of urgency. They needed to retreat, but Marcus's urgent whisper crackled over the comms. "Inbound, vipers from the chase circling the perimeter. They've got eyes on Lena's truck." Tension coiled like a spring as they regrouped at the tree line, documents secured in Ethan's saddlebag. The desert awoke fully now, birds calling from hidden perches, the sun climbing to illuminate every floor. Victor emerged from the tent, barking orders, his eyes sweeping the grounds with predatory suspicion. He hadn't seen them, but the net was tightening, his corruption's desperation manifesting in frantic sweeps. Ethan's mind flashed to Ava, safe in her trailer, the drawing in his pocket a reminder of stakes beyond the club. This wasn't about payback. It was redemption's quiet thunder, loyalty's blade cutting through deceit to free the souls ensnared. As the vipers mobilized, engines firing in a discordant chorus, Ethan signaled the withdrawal. They mounted up swiftly, the Harley's roar a defiant undercurrent to the growing clamor. Lena's truck peeled out first, leading them toward a hidden ravine escape, while Jax hacked a quick signal to an old network contact, anonymous but influential, uploading the evidence in real time. Bullets stayed holstered. Words would be the weapons here, truth the unyielding force. Victor's empire, built on broken promises, teetered on the edge of collapse, and Ethan's chosen family rode as one, their bond a beacon against the encroaching storm. The ravine swallowed them, walls of red rock rising like ancient guardians, muffling the pursuit's echoes. Dust billowed in their wake, a veil of obfuscation, as the first Viper bikes crested the ridge behind. Ethan's resolve hardened, the moral fire within him mirroring the dawn's blaze. Ava's call, her pointing out the threat, had averted blind fury, forging this path of justice instead. As they emerged onto a parallel trail, the sun fully crested, bathing the landscape in light that promised not destruction, but renewal. The confrontation loomed, but so did vindication, the unbreakable thread of honor weaving their fates toward a horizon unmarred by shadows. If this story is stirring something in you, hit that like button to show your support. It helps these tales of courage reach more hearts in need. The sun climbed higher, its rays slicing through the narrow mouth of the ravine like golden spears, illuminating the parallel trail that twisted through a labyrinth of eroded buttes and scattered boulders. Ethan's Harley surged ahead, the engine's steady thrum a counterpoint to the frantic echoes of viper pursuit reverberating off the canyon walls. Dust hung in thick curtains behind them, the air alive with the sharp scent of pulverized earth and heated rubber, as Jax, Riley, and Marcus maintained formation, their bikes weaving through the uneven terrain like a pack of determined wolves. Lena's pickup rattled along a higher ledge, scouting the flanks, her silhouette a reassuring outline against the azure sky. The escape had bought them breathing room, but the Viper's roars grew insistent, a swarm of 15 engines now closing the gap with ruthless precision. Ethan's gloved hands tightened on the grips, the vibration traveling up his arms like a pulse of unresolved history. Wind whipped through his beard, carrying the faint, acrid bite of sagebrush crushed under tires as memories flooded unbidden. The Viper initiation under a similar dawn, oaths carved into the desert floor with knives and conviction. Victor Kane had been there then, a rising enforcer with a silver tongue that masked his hunger for control. But time had revealed the cracks, deals rerouted to offshore accounts, brothers abandoned to fend for themselves after botched runs, promises twisted into chains. Ethan's departure hadn't been cowardice. It was the last stand of honor, a silent vow to his fallen commander that echoed now in every rev of the throttle. Ava's wide-eyed discovery of the scratch threat had reignited that fire, transforming a lone rider's burden into a collective redemption. A sharp bend forced them to lean low, the trail dipping into a dry creek bed lined with jagged rocks that clattered against the undercarriages like warning shots. Jax pulled even with Ethan, his voice cutting through the din via the comms. They're splitting, half-veering north to cut us off, Victor's signature move, boxing the prey. Ethan's response was a curt nod, eyes locked on the horizon where the trail funneled toward an open plain. The plan hinged on reaching the old surveyor station there, a derelict tower with a clear line of sight for broadcasting the evidence they'd snatched. No confrontation in the dirt. This would be justice served through exposure, the truth a weapon sharper than any blade. Riley's bike sputtered briefly, a graze from the earlier chain-whipping air from his exhaust. But he powered through, his grit a testament to the bonds that had survived the club's fracture. Lena's voice crackled over the line, steady as a surgeon's hand. Clear to the plain, but watch the rise, shadows moving. She was more than support. In the quiet hours after patrols, she'd heard confessions from Viper stragglers, piecing together Victor's web of deceit. Her involvement wasn't vengeance. It was the moral compass of a woman who'd chosen family over blood, mending the invisible wounds that wars left behind. Ethan glanced up, spotting her truck cresting a parallel ridge, its dust trail a deliberate diversion, drawing a few pursuers away. Gratitude swelled in his chest, mingling with the resolve that Ava's simple act, her small finger tracing the warning on his tank, had prevented a spiral into blind retaliation. Instead, this ride was a forge, tempering old scars into something unbreakable. The plain opened before them, a vast expanse of cracked hardpan shimmering under the intensifying heat, mirages dancing like elusive ghosts. The surveyor station loomed at its edge, a skeletal metal frame rusted to ochre, antennae bent but functional from Jax's earlier tweaks. Ethan signaled the halt, engines cutting to a growl as they circled the base, dismounting in a fluid motion honed by years of instinct. Marcus hauled the saddlebags, the weight of documents inside a tangible promise of accountability. The Viper's thunder swelled, headlights flashing like predatory eyes as they poured onto the plain, fanning out in a semicircle that hemmed them in. Victor's chopper led, its flame-painted frame gleaming mockingly, the man himself visible now, arms raised in mock triumph. His laugh, a distorted bark over the idling motors. "End of the line, Hale!" Victor bellowed, killing his engine and striding forward, flanked by his inner circle, his face, pockmarked and flushed, twisted into a sneer that barely masked the flicker of unease in his eyes. The air thickened with tension, the sun beating down like an impartial judge, casting long shadows that stretched toward the station. Ethan stepped out, hands visible and empty, his crew arrayed behind him in silent solidarity. No draws, no posturing, just the quiet authority of men who'd chosen light over shadow. "This isn't about old scores, Victor," Ethan said, his voice carrying clear and even, gravel undertones laced with the weight of truth. "It's about the lies you've buried, the brothers you left twisting in the wind." Victor's laugh faltered, his gaze darting to the saddlebags as Jax activated the tower's jury-rigged transmitter, the evidence uploading in encrypted bursts to neutral contacts in the veteran networks, eyes that could tip authorities without the stain of vigilante blood. Lena emerged from the truck, shotgun lowered but present, her presence a bridge to the humanity Victor had forsaken. "We know about the skims, the coerced silences," she called, her tone measured, cutting through the standoff like a scalpel. Whispers rippled through the Viper ranks, doubts sown like seeds in fertile soil. One rider, a young face Ethan recognized from the old days, shifted uneasily, his loyalty cracking under the revelation. The standoff held, breaths suspended in the heat haze, the desert's hush amplifying every word. Victor lunged forward, face contorting with desperation, but his own men hesitated, the broadcast signal light blinking steadily on the tower. "Traitors!" he spat, but the word rang hollow, exposed for the fear it masked. Ethan's eyes met Jax's, a nod passing the unspoken vow, protect the innocent, honor the fallen. Ava's drawing pressed against his chest, a child's faith that had averted revenge's abyss, guiding them to this precipice of moral victory. As sirens wailed faintly in the distance, alerted by the upload, the Vipers wavered, Victor's empire fracturing not by force, but by the unyielding light of truth. Riley moved first, edging toward a wavering Viper, hand extended not in threat, but invitation. "Join us, brother. Real loyalty doesn't chain you." The young rider dismounted, tossing his cut to the dust, a domino tipping. Chaos stirred, but not violence. Arguments erupted, allegiances shifting like sand dunes in the wind. Victor backed toward his bike, eyes wild, but Marcus blocked his path with sheer presence. A wall of quiet integrity. Ethan watched it unfold, the sun cresting noon, its warmth a balm on scars long cold. Redemption wasn't a blaze, it was this, the slow unraveling of deceit, the reclamation of promises in the face of corruption. As Federals crested the plain, lights flashing in official blues, Victor revved his engine in futile escape, but his own had turned, encircling him with the weight of exposed sins. Ethan turned away, mounting his Harley as the crew regrouped, the air lighter now, scented with the promise of closure. Ava's call had sparked it all, her innocence the key that unlocked not destruction, but healing. The ride back would be quieter, bonds deepened, the desert stretching endless, but no longer empty. Honor's legacy rode with them, a silent thunder that echoed into the horizon. The Federal lights pulsed across the plain like distant heartbeats, their wail cutting through the midday haze that shimmered off the hardpan, turning the air into a veil of rippling heat. Ethan Hale stood firm at the edge of the surveyor station, the rusted metal frame warm against his back, as the Viper ranks fractured before him. Dust swirled in lazy eddies around booted feet, carrying the sharp tang of gun oil and sweat-soaked leather, while the sun beat down relentlessly, etching every line of tension into the faces of men caught between old loyalties and dawning truths. Victor Kane revved his chopper one last time, the engine snarl a desperate plea, but his path was blocked, not by force, but by the turning tide of his own brothers, their bikes forming an unwitting barrier as murmurs swelled into open dissent. Ethan's gaze swept the scene, steel-grey eyes unblinking under the brim of his faded cap, the weight of Ava's drawing in his pocket a steady anchor amid the chaos. Jax flanked him, arms crossed over his chest, his wiry frame coiled like a spring ready to release not violence, but the final push of revelation. Riley and Marcus held the perimeter, their presence a quiet bulwark, while Lena hovered near the truck, her medical kit open on the hood, a symbol of the healing that could follow if honor prevailed. The broadcast had done its work. Encrypted files of Victor's ledgers, skimmed profits from veteran aid runs, coerced testimonies from silenced members now raced through neutral channels, alerting oversight boards and lawmen far beyond this sun-scorched arena. No shots rang out. The desert held its breath, the only sounds the creak of shifting leathers and the low rumble of idling engines fading into uneasy silence. Victor dismounted with a curse, his heavy boots kicking up puffs of dust that settled on his flame-emblazoned vest like ash from a dying fire. His face, flushed and veined, twisted into a mask of fury as he jabbed a finger toward Ethan. "You think this ends it, Hale? You slink back after years, stirring ghosts with your damn conscience?" His voice cracked on the last word, the bravado crumbling under the scrutiny of eyes that had once followed him blindly. A lieutenant, broad-shouldered Thomas, a name Ethan recalled from shared patrols, stepped forward, his cut slung over one shoulder like discarded skin. "It's over, Vic. We saw the files. You bled us dry while preaching brotherhood. My brother's widow got nothing after that last run. Your mismanagement." The accusation hung in the air, thick as the heat, rippling through the Vipers like a shockwave. Whispers turned to shouts, engines cutting off one by one as riders dismounted, clustering in knots of disbelief and rage. Victor spun, desperation etching deeper lines into his scar-riddled neck. "Lies, Hale's the snake," always was. "He walked when we needed him." But the words fell flat, exposed by the tower's blinking signal light, a silent testament to the evidence that painted him as the true betrayer. Ethan didn't rise to the bait. He stepped forward slowly, boots deliberate on the cracked earth, the scent of sun-warmed sage rising around him like an offering to forgotten oaths. "This isn't about me, Victor," Ethan said, his gravelly tone carrying the quiet authority of battlefields long past, where promises had been the only armor against the void. "It's about the code we swore. Protect the pack. Honor the fallen. You twisted it into chains for your gain. Left good men twisting in the wind after deals soured, widows forgotten, kids like Ava caught in the crossfire." The name slipped out unbidden, a spark that ignited fresh murmurs. Word of the trailer park shadows had spread through the ranks like desert wind. Victor's eyes narrowed, a flicker of recognition. Had one of his scouts marked the girl to draw Ethan out? The realization twisted his snarl into something feral, but before he could lunge, Jax interjected, holding up his phone where the upload confirmation glowed. "Feds are en route. 5 minutes out. Your empire's done, Vic. But walk away clean, and maybe the judge sees mercy for turning state's evidence." Jax's voice was even, laced with the rough empathy of a brother who'd lost too much to vengeance. Lena nodded from her post, her bandana damp with sweat, eyes scanning for any spark of violence. "I've patched enough of you boys. Don't make me bury more." Her words, soft yet steel-edged, struck home. Several Vipers lowered their gazes, the moral weight settling like dust after a storm. Marcus moved subtly, positioning himself between Victor and the nearest bike, his bulk a non-threatening shield, while Riley gathered the defectors, handing out water from Lena's kit, small gestures of reconnection, rebuilding the family Victor had fractured. Victor staggered back, the circle tightening not in threat but in judgment. His laugh was hollow now, echoing off the buttes like a coyote's final yelp. "You all turn on me for this ghost." He gestured wildly at Ethan, but the plea dissolved into silence as federal SUVs crested the plain, tires crunching gravel in a symphony of arrival. Agents spilled out, badges flashing under the sun, voices barking orders with the crisp efficiency of authority unchained by corruption. Victor raised his hands slowly, the fight draining from him like air from a punctured tire as cuffs clicked into place. No resistance. The truth had disarmed him more surely than any weapon. Ethan watched from the sidelines, the crew gathering close, their shoulders brushing in a silent reaffirmation of bonds reforged. The desert stretched around them, vast and indifferent, but for the first time in years it felt less like exile and more like homecoming. Ava's innocent point at the scratched tank, the warning that could have ignited blind revenge, had instead illuminated the path to this moment, preventing a cycle of blood with the power of exposure and loyalty. As Victor was led away, his empire dissolving into confessions and arrests, Ethan touched the drawing in his pocket, its childish lines a talisman of redemption. The sun arced toward afternoon, casting long shadows that no longer hid secrets, only promised new horizons. But the day's light revealed one last thread, a Viper holdout, lingering at the edge, eyes on Ethan with unresolved fire. Whispers of deeper corruption lingered, Victor's allies in distant chapters, threats that could snake back to the trailer park. Jax clapped Ethan's shoulder, the gesture heavy with unspoken plans. "We ride together now, brother. Clean the rot for good." Ethan nodded, mounting his Harley as the crew followed suit, engines awakening in harmonious growls. The federal cleanup unfolded behind them, but ahead lay the true work, safeguarding the innocents, honoring the promises that had survived the storm. Ava's call echoed in his mind, a child's voice that had averted darkness, guiding them toward a legacy of quiet, unyielding justice. The plain faded in the mirrors, the desert whispering of journeys unfinished, as they rode into the golden haze, family chosen and unbreakable. The golden haze of afternoon stretched across the Mojave like a painter's wash, softening the jagged edges of the buttes and turning the endless sand into waves of burnished amber. Ethan's Harley cut through it all, the engine's low rumble a steady heartbeat, syncing with the bikes flanking him. Jax on the left, his posture relaxed yet vigilant. Riley and Marcus trailing in loose formation, their silhouettes etched against the sky. Lena's pickup hummed along a parallel dirt track, her dust trail merging with theirs in a shared plume that spoke of unity, forged in fire. The surveyor station and its chaos lay miles behind, federal agents now sifting through the remnants of Victor's empire like archaeologists unearthing buried sins. No blood stained the ground. The victory had been poetic, a cascade of truths that toppled the corrupt without a single shot, leaving the air cleaner, the horizon clearer. Wind tugged at Ethan's jacket, carrying the warm, resinous scent of blooming creosote that dotted the roadside like resilient stars. His scars itched under the sun's caress, reminders of battles won and lost, but today they felt lighter, as if the desert itself had absorbed some of the weight. Ava's drawing rustled in his pocket, its crayon lines of a smiling rider and bike, a child's prophecy fulfilled. Her discovery of the scratch threat, those jagged words on his tank, had been the pivot, averting a plunge into vengeful shadows. Instead of riding alone into midnight's trap, he'd rallied the fragments of his chosen family, exposing Victor's web of greed. Skimmed funds from aid runs, meant for veterans' families, silenced voices coerced into complicity, promises twisted into nooses. The vipers were splintering, good men reclaiming their oaths, while Victor faced a cell where his lies would echo hollow. As Route 17 curved back toward the trailer park, the landscape shifted from barren wilds to the scattered outskirts of human striving. Faded billboards advertising motels, long shuttered, chain-link fences guarding modest homes baked under the relentless sky. Ethan's mind wandered to the girl, her wide eyes and trusting grip, the way she'd tugged his sleeve with innocent urgency. "They're gonna hurt you?" she'd asked, her voice a clarion call that pierced his isolation. In pointing out the warning, she'd not only saved him from blind retaliation, but ignited a moral reckoning that rippled outward, protecting her world and countless others from the viper's encroaching rot. Jax's voice crackled over the comms, pulling him from reverie. "Park's ahead. You leading the victory lap, or we splitting off quiet?" Ethan glanced at the mirrors, the crew's faces illuminated by the sinking sun. Jax's grin weathered but genuine, Riley nodding with quiet pride. Marcus giving a thumbs up that carried the weight of brotherhood reclaimed. "Together," he replied, the words simple yet profound, echoing the vows they'd renewed amid the plane's dust. Lena's truck veered closer, her window down, dark hair whipping in the breeze. She'd seen the fractures heal before, in clinic rooms where confessions spilled like unchecked wounds. And now she rode as their moral north, a reminder that redemption wasn't solitary. The trailer park emerged, its lights flickering to life against the encroaching dusk, families moving like silhouettes in a homecoming reel. They eased into the lot, engines purring to silence as gravel crunched under tires. Heads turned, curious glances from porches, children pausing mid-play, but no fear lingered. Word of the Shadow's retreat had spread like wildfire through the close-knit rows. Ava's mother stood at their trailer's door, arms crossed but eyes soft with relief. The girl peeking from behind her legs, clutching that same faded bear. Ethan dismounted first, boots steady on the earth that felt solid now, unyielding as the honor he'd reclaimed. The crew hung back, giving space, their presence a protective halo under the park's sodium lamps buzzing to life. Ava broke free, running forward with small feet pattering, her pigtails bouncing like flags of unscarred hope. "You came back," she exclaimed, stopping short, eyes searching his face for the promise kept. Ethan knelt to her level, the desert's cooling breath brushing his skin, and pulled the drawing from his pocket, now creased but intact. "Told you I would, kiddo. And look, your picture, it guided me true." He handed it over, watching her beam as she traced the lines, the simple act washing away the last grit of the day's trials. Her mother approached, gratitude etching her features, heard whispers. "Trouble past. You had a hand in that?" Ethan nodded, no boasts, just the quiet truth. "We all did. No more threats here. The wind's clean now." Jack stepped up, offering a nod to the woman, while Riley and Marcus distributed small tokens from their packs. Bottled water, spare jackets for the chill nights, a gesture of the family extending outward. Lena joined, kneeling beside Ava with a gentle smile, checking her over with practiced care, not for injuries, but for the reassurance that mends deeper. "Strong girl," she murmured, and Ava hugged her bear tighter, the circle widening to include this pocket of innocence. Victor's downfall ensured it. His arrests had unraveled threads that could have snaked back here, coercing silence or worse. The moral justice, delivered through evidence, not fists, had severed that threat, leaving space for lives to rebuild without the shadow of corruption. As twilight deepened, painting the sky in purples and golds, Ethan rose, the crew mounting up for the road ahead. Patrols would continue, rooting out lingering rot in distant chapters. But this stop was the heart of it all. Ava waved from the steps, her voice carrying on the breeze. "Promise more rides?" Ethan revved the engine. A throaty affirmation. Count on it. They rode out as one, the trailer's lights fading like a cherished memory, the desert unfolding anew, vast, but no longer lonely. Bonds of chosen family, tempered by sacrifice and truth, stretched before them, a legacy of quiet courage that no scratch or storm could erase. In the rear view, the park receded, but Ethan's resolve burned steady, fueled by the girl's call that had turned revenge's edge into redemption's light. The sun dipped fully, stars emerging like promises kept, guiding their convoy into the night where honor's thunder rolled eternal. Thank you for joining this journey of loyalty and quiet justice. If these stories of unbreakable promises touch your heart, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We'd love to ride these roads of redemption with you.